Behind the simple appearance of this stew lies a surprisingly delicious treat. Stay tuned. Salam, Nail here. This is chickpea stew. This dish is a wonderful example of how you can create a truly deep and complex flavor experience with simple ingredients. It tells the story of its origin in a delicious way and is a great option when you're on a budget but still want to enjoy a tasty meal. Let's get started. Here I have some chickpeas that are soaked overnight in salted water. I used 1 liter of water for 400 grams of chickpeas and added a teaspoon of salt. As you can see, the chickpeas have nearly doubled in size. Now I'll drain the water and give the chickpeas a quick rinse. Soaking them overnight makes the cooking process much easier and is essential if you're not planning to use a pressure cooker for this dish. Personally, I prefer cooking them in a regular pot because I enjoy the flavor more. However, I totally understand the advantages of using a pressure cooker, so feel free to go with whatever works best for you. Next, let's do some prep work before we get to the meat, so the cooking will be stress-free. I'm chopping 1 large onion into rough chunks, not too small, or it will completely dissolve by the end of the cooking process. Then I'll de-seed a red sweet pepper and cut it into smaller pieces. It's meant to break down completely. I'll also halve and grate a large tomato, leaving the skin behind, as that won't go into the dish. Now I roughly chop a carrot. It's just for flavor and won't be included when serving. I simply ate the carrot separately from the dish. Lastly, a large clove of garlic will also be added. And now for the spices. 2 tablespoons of tomato paste, 2 tablespoons of pepper paste, salt to taste, 1 tablespoon of paprika powder, 1 teaspoon of black pepper, 1 tablespoon of pomegranate molasses, 2 bay leaves, a few sprigs of parsley and chili flakes, also to taste. I got 350 grams of veal neck cut into larger pieces by my butcher. It's important to keep the bones as they are essential for the flavor. I gave the meat a quick rinse and patted it dry with paper towels. I'm using the same pot I'll cook the stew in to sear the meat. This means maximum heat, level 9 out of 9. Once the pot is properly heated, I add 3 tablespoons of neutral vegetable oil. Wait for it to heat up and then place the meat inside. Once the meat is in the pot, let it sit untouched until it gets a nice golden brown color from the Maillard reaction, creating rich and tasty roasted aromas. This step is purely about developing flavor, not cooking the meat completely. After about 1 minute and a half, I take a quick look by gently lifting the meat. A bit more color would be nice. I'd say there's still about 30 seconds left. Once those are up, this is how the meat should look like. Now it's time to flip it and do the other side. Same deal, just wait a bit. Nice, that looks great. I remove the meat from the pot, reduce the heat to level 5 out of 9 and toss in the onions, peppers and carrot pieces. I try to loosen the caramelized bits from the bottom of the pot. This is pure flavor. Once the onions become translucent, I add the tomato paste and pepper paste, cooking them for a minute. The last 30 seconds, I throw in the garlic. As soon as I smell it, I know it's time to deglaze with pomegranate molasses and the grated tomato. Time for the spices, salt, pepper, paprika powder and chili flakes. I give everything a quick stir and now it's time to add the chickpeas. And of course, the meat can go back in now too. I wouldn't want to forget the star of the dish. I add 2 liters of water, then throw in the bay leaves and a few sprigs of parsley. I put the lid on. Now I let the stew cook until the chickpeas are tender. This can vary depending on the type and age of the chickpeas, but it'll take around 1.5 to 3 hours. I know that mine take about 2 hours since I've cooked with this batch before, so I'll see you in about 2 hours. Alright, I'm back. It's been 2 hours and I've stirred occasionally and checked on the chickpeas. If your chickpeas aren't quite done yet, just keep simmering and add a bit of water if needed. Let's give it a quick taste test. Very tender. Mine are ready, so I'll turn off the heat. And here's what my dish looks like now. The water level has reduced, the chickpeas are nice and tender, and most importantly, full of flavor. But what's even more flavorful is the broth. Speaking of flavor, To finish off, I'm adding a few chunks of butter. It's important to add the butter at this point to prevent it from splitting. When I picture a simple yet deeply flavorful broth in my mind, this is exactly how I envisioned it. Time to serve it up. I have to admit, I prefer eating this stew simply with fresh flatbread and onions in between. In my mind, this rustic way just feels more authentic. Anything extra feels like too much, because for me this dish, in its simplicity, is whole and enough. Thank you for watching, and peace be upon you.